Hey, what's going on, guys, and welcome back to another Fallout 4 modding video. We're taking another look at the attachment pack. You guys seem to enjoy the nice little work in progress, a sneak peek from last week where I showed off all the stuff that Pig and I had done on the handmade assault rifle as well as the 44 and Western revolvers, and so I wanted to show off some more of that progress. Today, we'll be taking a main look at the 10mm, as I believe I have pretty much every attachment done for it now, and a couple of updates on the past weapons that I wanted to show off as well, and a sneak peek for those of you who decide to stay till the very end. Now then, before we begin, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of my patrons for supporting work like this that goes beyond YouTube. These projects are pretty time consuming, but having your support is absolutely amazing, and you guys are so generous. If any of you would like to support the projects like that on Patreon, it will be linked in the description below, but it's completely optional. By all means, you guys support me here enough on YouTube. Now then, the 10mm was definitely one of the more difficult weapons I've had to work on so far, and I have a feeling that the attachment pack is only going to get easier from here. The 10mm just has some really weird shapes that were hard enough to match, and then even once I finally got all the models in a place where I liked them, the textures were even harder because the 10mm textures are super weird in Fallout 4 as they use the palette system compared to the normal textures that every other weapon uses, and it just has a really weird color scheme. Turns out this thing is green and we just can't even tell. But once I got all of that figured out, I'm pretty happy with where all of the attachments are at so far, and I think we've got some really cool stuff to help not only fill in some of the gaps in the 10mm, but also add some really fun new goofy stuff. Now, I want to talk a little bit about my methodology for approaching some of these, as after I posted the little pictures up on YouTube in the community post, some people were very pleased and some people were very displeased with what I had done. And I think it just depends on how much you like the vanilla 10mm. It's not everybody's favorite weapon. Quite frankly, I do like it if you throw on the right attachments, and so I tried to add more attachments that help to flesh out that style. Most people complain that it's too big, and I will agree, this is a mighty massive pistol, and I know people would like it to work with some of those resize mods, and I still don't know. We need to do a little bit more testing. I don't know if it's going to work innately with those. I have a feeling if it does, all of my attachments are going to be too big compared to the rest of the pistol, so we may need to make a patch for one of those at some point in the future. Regardless, my idea when it came to actually making these attachments was to lean into the goofiness of the 10mm and make this almost a dedicated power armor pistol, something that's absolutely massive, and Pig and I had a lot of fun just finding ways to extend the barrel even further. If you remember in the vanilla game, you can throw on what are essentially copies of the same barrel pieces. You throw on the long light barrel and then you throw on the compensator, and they're just the same piece stacked on top of each other like Lego blocks, and we wanted to take that even further, but still make it feel natural in a sense. Honestly, as hard as it was, the 10mm was a lot of fun, and I think I've got some really cool stuff in store, including a first look at some of the new functional laser sights that will be included in this pack. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and hop in game and check those out, because those are something I'm really excited for. So here we are in game with a 10mm pistol, and you'll notice right off the bat, when we aim down sights, this thing functions as it should like a regular 10mm using its iron sights. But if you've been following me for long enough, you know that I like me some functional laser sights. Now, it would have been easy enough just to throw on a useless hipfire laser sight onto the long barrel, but the problem with that is if you ever change the barrels, it's not going to work, and I like functional laser sights. So I went for some top-mounted options. Now then, this one here is going to be the compact laser option, which is based on the Halo Magnum, which I like a lot. This idea was actually given by jcruz05, and you'll see that it works. Whenever you try to aim down sights, you use the laser instead of your iron sight, and that's the whole point that I've been trying to tell people on the YouTube comments, is that I really want to use my functional laser sight concept in all of these weapons to give a cool, new, fun way to approach combat. And I gotta say, I like this a lot. I think it's really cool. I believe this Magnum also has the 44 conversion that we added, so it's pretty beefy. Oh yeah, it definitely does. And this thing is a lot of fun to use in combat. This is going to be your real heavy option for the 10mm. But if you don't like this sort of iron sight, or laser sight I mean, you can go for a different option. And this is going to be jcruz's laser sight from his 556 collection, which I think looks really cool and has a nice classic Fallout feel. You can see here it has the green laser. This is going to be the stronger laser variant compared to the compact lasers in my mod, and this one is very, very nice and very usable in pretty much every environment. I like this a lot, and I really just like the aesthetic of it as well. If we go and look at this thing up close, you'll see it has that really cool caution tape and just some really cool aesthetics made by Jay Cruz, so big props to him for making a really awesome laser sight model. Now then, I suppose we should talk about every attachment that's going to make its way into this pack, because once the thing fully comes out and there's hundreds of attachments for every single weapon, it's going to be hard to cover it all, so I think doing it in these nice little mod update videos is a good way to show off exactly what's going into your game. You'll notice that I do have a few configurations here already, and we'll get into that a little bit. Also, for these laser sight versions that are kind of scooted off to the side of the screen and not centered, those will be fixed by the time we go into full release. I just haven't added a bounding sphere yet. Now then, let's go ahead and talk every single attachment. We do actually have a new receiver for the 10mm, and that is going to be the new endgame receiver known as the Magnum receiver. This is going to rechamber it to 44. Since this is a big beefy pistol, I wanted to embrace that and make this a proper Magnum, and this is going to again rechamber to 44, increase that damage from 62 on the advanced up to a full-on 70, reduce the fire rate, increase the recoil, and reduce the accuracy just a tad. Not sure why we did that, I'll have to ask Pig. Anyways, this is also going to change the mesh of the receiver and add on that cool little hand guard that you'll see here that is on the classic Halo Magnum. Taking some Halo inspirations for this. You guys know that with the skewer and the pulse carbine, I like to add a little bit of Halo into my Fallout, but still keep it nice and lore friendly, and I think this is a fun way to do that. For barrels, we have all of your standard barrels, of course, but we threw on a couple of new ones like the Comfort Barrel. This is going to add that goofy 6.520 wooden foregrip that isn't actually usable, but I think it's really cool. And with a pistol as big as this, you may need that in all realistic, immersive purposes, but you'll never actually use it in game. I also added some new options to extend the barrels further. So this takes the long barrel and throws on a little extension and a nice little support here to make it look like it's not just going to fall off when you throw on a suppressor or even more extensions. We have different extended versions of the other barrels as well, like an extended version of the lighter barrel, which I think looks actually pretty cool. I think if you throw a suppressor on this, it'll be pretty long, but it'll have a nice sleek profile. We also have the long version of the Comfort Barrel too, and all of these will still take muzzle attachments on top of this, so this weapon can get even bigger. For grips, we have some pretty cool stuff. We've got all the standard ones, including a classic grip, a little homage to that 6.520 grip. We also have the stocks that are added with this mod. We have a light wireframe stock that's going to be bolted onto the wooden grip here and use some cool parts that we already have in the pack to help save on space. And then the recoil compensating stock is going to repurpose some cool parts from the Gauss rifle as well to make a neat little pistol stock that I think looks pretty cool. For the magazines, we actually do have one more magazine, and that is the drum mag, as I'm sure everybody wanted. When you run this thing in full auto, having more ammo capacity is always nice. For sights, we do have those two laser sights. We have the compact laser sight, which is that Halo-inspired one, and then the standard laser sight by Jay Cruz. And then for muzzles, we do have a couple options as well, including a spiked compensator. This is a lot of fun. It's going to add some bashing damage as well as reduce recoil. And then the heavy suppressor, which is going to make its way over to a lot of weapons. Now, I don't think this is the final texture. I want to do some touch-ups to it, but this is essentially the size of it. It is actually bigger than the suppressor in the base game, which means this thing is absolutely massive, and the idea is this is a real big suppressor. It's going to add to the weight, and it's going to be harder to craft, requiring more materials and more perks, but it's not going to give you that range debuff that the normal suppressor does. This one is actually just going to suppress your weapon without any negative penalties aside from the weight and crafting costs. Now, that's pretty much all of the 10mm parts, but I do want to talk about some other stuff before we go, including the fact that I have in-game now the full wooden stocks for the Revolver and the Western, as well as the 45-70 receiver here. So you can make a proper sniping weapon out of the 44 now, not just throwing a scope on this thing and hoping for the best. You've got some actual parts to back it up and use this thing at extended ranges. So this is a lot of fun and a cool new way to have a late game revolver. And I think that I did a pretty decent job on those organic looking wood parts, something I really want to practice with, and I think I did decently on these. Now then, much like last time, I do have some stuff I want to show off to you guys in Blender, because I do just want to share what I'm working on and not just keep all this stuff secret. Here is a look at some parts that will be included in a future attachment pack. Sadly, not the one that I'm working on now, but I do plan to add a junk parts or a raider parts pack that will add some cool junky parts to all the weapons. The idea behind them is they will be craftable earlier in the game, so if you ever happen to pick up a weapon really early on and you can't craft anything for it, this will provide alternative attachments that will be worse, but will be available at pretty much level 1. So here are some junk parts that I have here for the AK. I'm not sure if this is the permanent grip, but I do definitely like this little recoil stock here and the makeshift barrel, which is literally just wrapped. It's missing the wood furniture, so they said, screw it, I'm a raider, I'm hopped up on chems, let's just wrap it with some cloth so I don't burn my hands. And I think that's pretty funny and pretty Fallout. Now then, keeping that junk parts theme, I want to show off some of the junk parts that may make their way into the Revolver as well. Here we have not only the handmade grip, which is just the stuff on the left here, but also the bruiser grip, which will throw on a nice set of brass knuckles with some spikes and blades. This is definitely a Raider variant of the 44, and I think this one will be a lot of fun to add some huge melee or bashing damage to the 44, and it just looks really cool. I wanted to throw this into the regular pack, but I think the style of it definitely fits that Raider junk aesthetic more, so sadly I am going to save it for that pack, but once it comes out you can actually use both packs together to add even more attachments to the vanilla weapons if you're crazy enough like me. And the last of what I'll be showing off in Blender today comes in the form of the assault rifle. Here we have a look at another junk stock, and I know this is going to look really weird to some people, but the vanilla animations for the combat rifle make it very hard to throw on pistol grips. They have to be at an extreme angle, and I thought this would be a funny Raider alternative to the standard grip. Again, this will be a really low tier stock. You probably won't want to use it much beyond level 1, so it's not something you have to worry about too much. But I do have some other goofy stuff to show off beyond junk attachments. Here we have a PPSH inspired barrel. Actually, let me take that heat shield off for you so you can see it better. And that may seem a bit goofy, but if you don't know the history of the combat rifle, which is based on the combat shotgun, which is based on the combat shotgun from Fallout 3, which is based on the PPSH. So I figured it would be great to pay homage to the original weapon and throw on a PPSH barrel, and I think it's pretty goofy. And if you use my remesh for the combat rifle, you can throw on a nice pistol caliber magazine, and it'll actually work pretty well and make for a pretty interesting, lore-friendly American PPSH. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but hey, it's Fallout. But hey, that's not all. I also have some pretty interesting high tier stuff going on, like a pretty crazy recoil compensating stock using a lot of parts from the laser rifle, and it's actually going to change the color of the foregrip as well to that nice laser rifle green to match the stock, and I think that's pretty neat. And I'm surprised at how well the laser rifle stuff just kind of fits on the combat rifle. I had to make some very minor tweaks and also make a housing for the lower part of the receiver here, but it kind of just works. And what's really cool is these holes line up really nice and they show off the trigger inside so you can actually see it all moving. And I think that's a really interesting design for the combat rifle. It definitely adds some new character to it and helps differentiate it from the combat shotgun. And I think the absolute last attachment we have for the combat rifle here is the suppressed barrel, which is going to add a nice heavy suppressed barrel that's going to be similar to the one I showed off in the 10mm, where it will not give that range reduction. However, the cost of this one is not only going to be the weight and the materials, but also you're not going to be able to throw on any muzzle devices. So this one is going to come as is. It's just a full-on suppressed barrel. Alright, and now then, for those of you who stayed to the very end, I do have something special to show you. This one is more of a proof of concept than a full-on attachment, but here we have the minigun with laser sights. Now, again, this is a proof of concept. This is not at all what it'll look like when it's actually done, but the idea here, thanks to myself and Pig, is that probably in the junk pack, they will have 6 different laser sights strapped onto the barrels of the minigun, and that will help you aim. And that's the whole idea. And the coolest part that I'm sure all of you are going to love is they do, in fact, spin. Yeah, spinning laser sights, because why not? And if all goes well, you'll even be able to throw on an additional laser sight to throw in the middle for the best aiming possible with the minigun. Much better than that lame old gunner sight in the vanilla game. But I'm sure you guys want to see this thing fire, so I'll go ahead and let that go now. It gets a little goofy and crazy once things actually start spinning up, but I think the idea is still just a lot of fun and shows the potential that Fallout modding can have. Lots of fun. And that's what we're here for. Fun. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up there. I hope you guys enjoy these little sneak peeks. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you do, and if you want to see more of these every time we get a weapon done, as I'd be absolutely happy to do so. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to drop a rating. Consider subscribing if you haven't already for more videos just like this. Big shout out to all of my patrons for supporting every single video. And of course, a very special thank you to Captain Chaos, Helljumper, Indecisive Wolf, Jackie Noid, Timmy76, Cushy, Moonlit Gamer, Feed, and Youth RC for that Tier 3 Patreon membership. Again, if you want to check out Patreon, it will be linked down in the description below, but it is completely optional. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace!